Now, some big breaking news to bring you now. There will be no FA Cup replays from the first round next season.
As always, the game is dictated and dominated by the big boys, and the big boys don't want FA Cup replays, do they?
Football. The beautiful game. However, in the modern day, it truly feels like football is changing, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. But this isn't a bad thing. Life is all about change, and football is no different. Whether it was the year 206 BC when the Han Dynasty in China first invented the concept of kicking a ball around, or in the year 1863 when the English Football Association first implemented the first concrete set of rules for the game of football itself, football has always been subject to change, and that is under debate by no one in the game space. However, a decision implemented today to the oldest cup competition in football history has just sent shockwaves throughout the footballing world, and I, for one, am horrified. This is the problem with the FA Cup. Hello guys, it's Alex from the Back Four Podcast, and I am here again, sitting in my bedroom, complaining about things that are way bigger than me and I will in no way impact. And on today's edition of that, we have the change recently made this morning to the English FA Cup. Now, a lot of you who may not be too aware about the English FA Cup, here's a brief backstory. The English FA Cup was named the FA Cup after the English Football Association, which was the branch that invented the cup. It was first introduced in the 1871-72 season and was won by a team named Wanderers after they beat the Royal Engineers 1-0 at the Oval in the final. Since 1970, a concurrent women's edition of the FA Cup has been introduced, and the competition has been named the Emirates FA Cup since 2015. Now, the competition works by all involved teams playing a set of fixtures until one team at the end is decided the winner. This works by the teams playing in a knockout format where if they win, they go through to the next round, and if they lose, they are knocked out of the tournament. However, it wasn't always like this. In the early editions of the competition, if two teams were to draw a game, then both teams would proceed to the next round. In fact, this went on for a while, and it didn't raise any eyebrows until problems started to be caused around the ends of the tournament, normally around the quarterfinal or semi-final stage, when multiple teams would draw games and be put subsequently through to quarterfinals and finals where there would obviously be too many teams. Now, this caused a lot of headaches for the English FA, and so the idea of a cup replay was decided. However, this seemingly flawless system was indeed flawed, as in the early editions of the English FA Cup, all games were to be played at the Oval. The Oval and its surrounding area being more prone to having clubs that were of higher wealth and didn't have to experience much pain with travel costs to get to the games. But for the poorer, small, working-class clubs, this was a big problem, as they couldn't genuinely afford to get to games most of the time. It was an even bigger problem if they had to replay a fixture. Now, this caused a lot of issues, because like the current FA Cup, where we have home ties for some teams, and if they were to draw, they would then play an away tie in the reverse fixture, this didn't exist. All these working class clubs would have to travel to the game, then travel back to their homes, and then would have to travel back to the same place to replay the fixtures. And lots of poorer teams would not be able to play these fixtures and would instead have to forfeit their rounds in the cup. The most famous example of this was when upper-class English side Old Etonians actually came off against working-class side Darwin in the English FA Cup. And no, this is not the Australian Darwin, obviously. This is an old British club, Darwin, working class. Now, this is actually the storyline for the documentary series on Netflix called The English Game, which is a very good series. I've personally watched it myself. Very intriguing. Go give it a watch if you want. But the story is actually really cool. In the first edition of the fixture, the Old Etonians playing near home at the Oval versus a travelling working class Darwin side who could barely even afford to get to the game if it wasn't for fundraisers from their local community. Darwin found themselves 5-1 down at the end of the first half. However, because of a fight back late into the game, they managed to draw the fixture 5-5. The Darwin side wanted to extend the game to extra time. However, the Old Etonians, who at the time had a large position of power, at the English FA, decided that the fixture would be replayed. Darwin then replayed the fixture and drew again. And all this back and forth travelling and stuff like player injuries and players not being able to commit to being away from home for so long meant that Darwin eventually went down 6-2 in the third and final fixture between the two teams. Now, this was one of the first real famous additions or sort of arguments as to why replay fixtures should exist in a home and away format. Lots of the older working class clubs weren't able to provide funding for travelling for these players to actually get to their games. In the early editions of the competitions, that Wanderers team that won the first edition of the FA Cup were only into the next round because the team that they were playing in the semi-final after they drew the first semi-final was based in Glasgow and could then not travel down to the Oval for a second time to play the second fixture. So they were then handed a free pass to the final to play Royal Engineers, where they then won 1-0. In fact, problems with draws were existing from the very first game. In the very first game of the FA Cup, the early form of Crystal Palace drew their first game and were given a free pass to the next round. And this happened another time against the Wanderers in the quarterfinal. So, as you can see, the system itself from early was very flawed and was subject to a lot of change. Thankfully, the English FA got there. But this is not what we're talking about today. This is just a bit of a brief history as to how cup replays used to work and why they were subject to change in the first place. Last night, the English Football Association, in agreement with the Premier League, has decided that from the first round of the FA Cup onwards, there will be no fixture replays. This is an absolutely horrible decision and has shocked the entire English football pyramid, with most Premier League fans even being upset about this decision. And honestly, I can't see why anyone would disagree as to why people are upset at this. It is a horrible change, and it has the potential to damage several lower league clubs from the Championship downwards. And you may be wondering, Alex, why is that? Well, for something that you people may not know watching this video, or for people that don't understand why this is a particularly bad thing, in the FA Cup, receipts for gate prices and everything and revenue generated from the matches are split between both clubs participating 50-50. Now, for the Premier League teams, this doesn't really mean much. Sometimes you have a Man City home game where they'll be playing, you know, a smaller, maybe Championship side or something, and they won't necessarily sell out a stadium or anything. So you can see why this isn't a great thing for them. Also, replays would mean that they have to play more games, and especially with the introduction of the Champions League and Europa League and Conference League being extended next season, with the extended group stages meaning that they have to play 8 group stage games and not 6, this is a big problem for the bigger sides. Even though the FA Cup, a lot of the time, they used to test out maybe some backup players, academy players, they still don't like the fact that they're having to play extra games and have the potential to have to play fixture on fixture on fixture of replays in the FA Cup if they keep drawing. So obviously you'd see why some of the bigger Premier League teams are not as interested as some of the lower league teams to be playing these replays of the fixtures. However, while this isn't a problem for big Premier League teams like your Man Cities, your Man Uniteds, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, your big Premier League sides, this is a massive problem and has potential to seriously damage many football teams lower in the pyramid. And what I mean by that is that a lot of these lower teams rely on the funding that they do get from match receipts or from gate receipts. And a lot of clubs do have the entire... maybe not the entirety, but do have a large portion of their financial stability resting on performance in the FA Cup. And you may be wondering, why is that? Well, a lot of times in the FA Cup, it comes down to the luck of the draw. But a lot of times for lower league sides, they will be hoping to draw a big team in the hopes that they will draw in massive numbers of crowds coming to watch their games and will be able to generate the kind of revenue that will keep their club up and healthy and financially stable for years to come. This is quite evident in the ways that a lot of lower down clubs have gone on historical cup runs and have been able to secure funding that they've then been able to put into stuff like new facilities or stadium upgrades or anything like that. And any football manager player like myself would be able to tell you that the FA Cup run for a lower English side is absolutely massive and imperative to securing financial stability, which is something that English clubs, especially in the lower leagues, have struggled with recently. Now, you may be wondering, Alex, with a decision weighing as heavily on the EFL and the rest of the football pyramid, the National League and everything like that, how has this decision managed to come to pass? How have they allowed this to happen? Well, here's the real kicker. They didn't have a say in the matter. Now, this is becoming a big thing among lots of top clubs. Most notably, you'd remember a few years back, the UEFA Super League. Now, sorry, not the UEFA Super League, the European Super League. Now, this was a decision made between the top clubs of the world and their owners and chairmen and presidents and whatever. And all these top European organizations, basically saying that we're going to split away from our domestic leagues to make more money. Now, obviously, this was done without the permission of UEFA, the governing body, and without the permission of their leagues and the teams in those leagues, and this was potentially very damaging to teams lower in the pyramids and the actual financial stability of these big leagues. Could you imagine a Premier League without Man City, Chelsea, Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Tottenham, the big six? It's just not the same anymore. And now I know that we have plenty of other quality English sides, Aston Villa, West Ham, Newcastle, performing fantastically, but it's just not the same. And it's really, really shameful that that was a genuine prospect. Thank goodness it's dead and buried for the time being, pending any incoming lawsuits for these big teams. But it's not something that us as football fans have to worry about for the time being. This, however, is a massive change that is going to come into effect next season and has the potential to bankrupt several English clubs that are not held together by massive money tycoons like the ones in the Premier Leagues. It is absolutely shameful, it is disgusting, and I want to break down not only the potential corruption of the English FA, but just the absolute idiocy and the hypocrisy that they've released with their statements and everything otherwise. Now, the main things to note from the recent announcement from the FA is that all rounds will be played on weekends, the 4th, 5th and quarterfinal ties will also be played on weekends and exclusive of Premier League games. No replays will be allowed from the first round onwards, cup final weekends are exclusive of Premier League games, and the Premier League has promised to increase funding to the football pyramid. Now, you may be wondering, Alex, with a financial decision that weighs so heavily on these smaller clubs that rely so heavily on FA Cup money to be able to secure financial stability, what exactly is the Premier League going to put in for funding with that last statement they've made there? Well, the Premier League before this has promised to donate £100 million per year to grassroots football in England, which is fantastic because this provides stuff like goals, for teams or pitch maintenance or even refereeing courses and stuff like that. Beautiful. They've offered to only up that by £33 million. And you say, well, Alex, that's quite a lot. You know, they don't have to do this. And this is a good thing. It's providing, you know, funding to these teams. Well, yeah, sure. But this all goes down to grassroots. It doesn't go... It's not a guarantee where this goes. We're not guaranteeing that this goes to any of the lower down clubs. And this applies to championship clubs as well. This money, this $33 million, is split from championship clubs downwards. So you think, okay, Championship, League 1, League 2, and National League, that must be good. No. This is the entire football pyramid. Okay, so levels 1 to 10. No. This includes grassroots as well. Now, the problem here is that once you split it down, there's actually not a lot of money going around. And you think, okay, well, 33 million split up between all these clubs. How many clubs are there? 1,000, 2,000, maybe even 5,000. There are over 40,000 active association football clubs in England alone. England alone has over 40,000. So when you break down the 33 million and divide it by the 40,000 minimum clubs that there are in England, this is $825 only. $825 spread over these clubs. And this isn't even taking into account disability football, women's football, refereeing courses, or pitch maintenance, or anything like that. This is, on basis, for every club, £825. When you consider that a large portion of this is just going to end up going to the Championship, League 1 and League 2 clubs, that it leaves almost nothing at the bottom. Acting like this is significant revenue or anything like that for these lower down clubs that are going to miss out on TV deals, TV money for these replay fixtures, and possible massive gate receipts for playing against these bigger teams. It is absolutely disgraceful that the English FA and the Premier League are trying to justify this decision by saying, well, look, guys, here's a 33% increase on what we were already giving you. That is absolutely diabolical. And the fact that they have the balls to sit there and act like this is a generous handout, it is absolutely disgusting. They should be ashamed of themselves, and this decision needs to be reversed immediately, or the funding needs to be substantially increased with a guarantee that there's going to be substantial increased funds for clubs already in the professional and semi-professional pyramid, because this shit is absolutely not good enough. So is it just me, or is this starting to remind me a lot of that one movie on Netflix, that Spanish movie, like Platform or something like that, where all the people at the top are getting all the food and they're well fed, and the people at the bottom are perishing because of how greedy the people at the top are. People at the top, people making the food. That one scene where they cancel the entire sending of a dish because it has a hair in it, because they're so focused on perfection and how to, you know, get just a little bit better, how they can just focus on just making it a little bit more perfect, that everyone below perishes because they are without food and they are suffering. It's so ironic. It's so ironic that it genuinely hurts. Now, am I surprised by any of this? No, I'm not surprised at all. This is the same football association that allowed clubs like Bury or Stockport or Macclesfield to get fucking beat to their knees until they had to go into administration and had to delete their entire football clubs and restart because they're such an incompetent organisation that don't care about the lower down clubs, that they will continue to punish them for their financial hardships that a lot of the time the English FA will help to cause by allowing them to be taken over by incredibly poor or financially not stable owners, and will then proceed to punish the clubs for when they inevitably do lose a bunch of money and have to go under. I'm not surprised by this at all. No one else should be. The money that these top clubs are making, like, for God's sake, 2 years ago in the year of our Lord 2022, Man City signed Calvin Phillips for about £50 million. And now the Premier League are trying to hand out 33 million like it's some sort of generous handout. Like, Jesus Christ, I think Calvin Phillips would genuinely do a better job as the head of the FA than the current suit-wearing wankers that they have there, trying to do this shit like it's some sort of brilliant class act. It's absolutely disgraceful. And it's so sad to see. The fact that, like I said, Bury and Macclesfield and even clubs like Derby County can barely stay up every year because of how expensive it's becoming to run football clubs in the modern game, and how harsh that the English FA can be. It's really, really disgusting that they would put more financial strain on these small clubs just so they can earn a tiny bit more money by appeasing those at the top. And I see a lot of people going around saying, oh, Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp, Thomas Frank, you guys are disgusting because you complain about feet. Just shut the fuck up. Just shut up, please. Like, honestly, oh yeah, I'm sure it's Pep Guardiola's decision that he wanted to go to. I'm sure it's Pep Guardiola's entire decision to punish these lower down clubs. You're a manager if you're a manager whose players are constantly getting injured in replay fixtures, I don't give a shit if you complain. Am I a bit upset that someone like Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp, who have, you know, massive influence on the game, would say something like that? Yes, I'm upset. Do I blame them for this decision? No, and you shouldn't, because they're not the ones that make the decisions at the end of the day. They're not on the FA board. They're not the ones that are dooming these smaller clubs to financial ruin. This is the result of people at the top who are greedy and don't understand what football truly means to the masses. They don't understand what football in itself is. Football, and people say all the time, oh, football's lost its meaning, it used to be a working class game, it's been stolen by the rich, and you can agree with that if you want, or you can disagree with it if you want. I don't really mind. But I think we all understand how bad this is going to be for English football in general, and especially for these lower league clubs. I will not be surprised if we see several more clubs going into administration. This is already a problem with Italian football, and as an Italian myself, who's, you know, I'm a Sicilian. Our two biggest clubs got absolutely, you know, thrown into the shadow realm in recent years. Catania obviously got bought out by Ross Pellegrino's doing a bit better. Palermo obviously in Serie B now that we're with the CFG. But it's such a shame. It's genuinely such a shame. And I would be fuming if I were a fan of a lower league club, you know, something like a Barrow, or even something like that, if I have to sit back and see that all these big Premier League clubs are getting, you know, getting their feet kissed by the English FA just so your local club can, you know, be absolutely destroyed by the sheer incompetence and nonchalantness, if that's even a word, of these people at the top. It's genuinely sad. Now, the question is, where do we go from here? What do I think the correct decision should be. And in all honesty, my decision would be, just leave it the fucking way it was. There was no problem with it earlier. Why the fuck did you have to change it in the fucking first place? Yeah, that would basically be my answer. Because, look, it's the same case with something like the World Cup, how they're increasing from 32 teams to 48, and how they're increasing the Champions League to have more group stage games and stuff like that. It's all about money. It's all about money. Let's be completely honest here. There's more games, there's more revenue generated, there's new markets opened up. It's what the modern game's about, unfortunately, and nothing's going to change it. Money, money, money makes the world go round, as that one rapper said in that one song. So I'm going to sit back and watch the absolute dumpster fire that is the English FA try to respond to the situation. Hopefully they reverse their decision, because that would be absolutely phenomenal, but I seriously doubt they will, because it will upset the big boys at the top, and we all know that you don't want to upset the big boys at the top, because they will throw their toys out the pram and then go try and start their own European league somewhere. So let's just all sit back and watch this unfold and pray and hope that some of the lower down clubs don't get too stiffed by this. I just want to say quickly, massive thank you to Chris Wilder, who came out in a recent interview for Sheffield United. I put the clip at the start of the video saying that, basically criticising the FA for it. Absolutely phenomenal work, and I wish more people would come out and do that. Martin Tyler has done that already, and I can't wait for more people to come out and do the same. But lads, I'm going to end the video there. It's just a quick little rant from me. If I decide to make a follow-up video on this, then I will, but I just wanted to get this out there, and I just wanted to say thank you guys all so much for tuning in and showing your support on my recent videos. If you would like to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button down below, and if you would like to subscribe to watch our Pro Clubs content, Sokkah X, the YouTube channel link is down in the description. But guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you sticking with me in this video. Pray for the lower league clubs. They're absolutely going to need it in the years going forward. And look, if anything, take the positive out of it, that this is yet another situation in which all football fans can come together and appreciate that, you know, while these rich wankers destroy our games, we will all truly be united for how much we truly love this game, as chaotic and corrupt and bullshit as it can be sometimes. It will always be the world game. It will always be the light of my life, the thing that keeps me and a lot of people going and getting up in the morning, and something to look forward to. Thank you, football. Fuck the FA. Thank you for watching. Catch us later.